Let me say, first of all, that I shared with you different links regarding not only Open Data by Data Governance Act that I think it should be useful for you in terms of the identification of projects and service data service intermediators that are playing in this new market. And in addition to what Mar asked, there is an interesting difference between open data itself with the Data Governance Act and a healthcare data space that is based on the fact that in these areas, the organizations who are preparing, cataloging, making, and sharing datasets could charge fees in order to reimburse and to make the system sustainable. But let me go ahead in my presentation saying that in my case, it's really relevant for me, and I want to share with you some key elements that, in my opinion, will define the future health data spaces, but are an interesting lesson learned for municipalities. Take into account that if you consider Data Governance Act that is addressed to promote public service intermediators and the European Health Data Space, the European Commission, the Parliament and the Member States, it's clear that they will promote these specific regulations in order to promote the main framework for this area and to consider the most urgent issue that it is to connect healthcare systems and to promote secondary use of healthcare data. This is due to our experience in COVID disease. On the other hand, our project was based on most of the projects in urban health cluster are related with health. And this future regulation is giving us a really interesting insight in order to develop our strategies in services like social services and activities really depending of municipalities that impact in the health of the population. Sometimes, let me say that to build a personal data space addressed for reuse, to fulfill GDPR, to achieve the goals on AI Act, or to implement conditions for anonymization and data sharing is considered as a really high or really demanding effort. I try to address different insights about how to do that. First of all, my main point is that, and it is one of the most important differences between the open data space and in a secure processing environment in European data space and in different future European data spaces based on personal data or data protected by intellectual property rights or trade secrets consists specifically in the building of a secure processing environment. These are the main features of these environments in the future European Health Data Space regulation. If you see them, you could see that at the end of the day, what they have been written here is the basic measures for an information system. Okay, you have to be sure about authentication and definition of user profiles. You need to prevent intrusions and unauthorized use. You have to define clearly profiles, permissions, in order to make clear differences and strategies about how to process data. You have to provide traceability, and you have to implement periodic checks and audits. Let me add that interoperability and availability will be really relevant issues here. But in fact, in future, probably we will have conditions for standardization that will come from the European Union, from the European Commission in order to improve and to have a better improvement of European health data space. In that sense, I recommend to you the reading of the first paper published by AENISA, the cybersecurity agency in Europe, addressed to analyze data spaces requirements. And in any case, we have to assume that the measures I shared with you previously, this 5 or 6.1, that refers to access restrictions, to risk minimization on reading, copying, and modification or removal, to limitation of the capabilities of the users to make or to provide traceability with identifiable logs, or to monitorize the security measures. All of that are a general approach in order to do that. In our experience, let me say that in so many countries, especially in Spain, we have to apply a Spanish national security standard or framework for public administrations that is really demandant on security developings. And we have to assume that in other states, they will adopt ISO standards, or they will contract providers who are implementing ISO standards. At the end of the day, there is a main point on European health data space that I think it should be applicable to municipalities. And this is based on European sovereignty and in lessons learned from the different SCREMs resolutions of the European Union Court, Justice Court, excuse me, that states clearly conditions for international data transfers. Lesson learned here is that the European Union prefers to process data in local and European countries-based premises. Then this is absolutely relevant. This is not only about how to build the space, it is about where, in terms of geographical terms or issues, this must be based. I mean that the Commission should define the conditions for a secure processing environment regarding health data EU, the European infrastructure, national data space, authorized participants, and trusted data holders. But at the end of the day, what it is at stake here is how to build that. Because you need to understand that there are so many infrastructural, budgetary, and technical decisions that must be made by municipalities in order to build their own data spaces. Remember, and I want to underline it 1, twice, 3, 10 times. We are talking about a closed, securized data space environment. And let me say, and I'm using here the approach to data spaces guidance from GDPR perspective provided by the Spanish Data Protection Agency, that you have to understand that there will be a data holder, that here will be the municipality, that will be directly accessible or collaborating in order to aggregate data to a data space that could be supported by the province, the region, or the European member state. But at the end of the day, what it is clear here is that the technical, legal, and ethical procedures must be implemented in order to achieve the goal, especially in cases where the municipality has the aspiration to be a data intermediary or to provide direct access for citizen researchers or any kind of users, such as startups or companies to their data spaces. Let me say to you different configurations of this kind of data spaces. What you are looking in your screen is a data space based on sharing via a central node. In this case, any municipality as data holder has to provide datasets with the adequate structure, catalogation, let me say metadata indexation and labelization in order to provide a clear information about not only the contents of the dataset, but the permitted or authorized uses and the conditions of the dataset in terms of quality and reusability. It means that you will be sharing data with data users who ask an authority or let me say, intermediation services for obtain a data permit for processing data. On the other hand, it could be that in case of federated data processing, the data space acts as a single mediator that provides access directly to your premises. That's the reason that I underlined the maturity you need in order to provide this kind of services, because we are talking about giving the community trustworthy, affordable, tested datasets in an environment that could or must support different level of data processing for so many users. That's the reason I underline the importance of availability. On the other hand, here security, taking into account that you will be related with third parties and interoperability, there will be really relevant. Future talks about federation of data spaces. And let me say that we need to have an open mind. I have a lot of experience on the area of health, and I assumed that in future, so many researchers, so many companies, so many governments that are interested in secondary use of data in healthcare issues will be really interested in the term that Noemi has shared with you, calling about health determinants. Part of these health determinants are related with environment, mobility, quality of air, quality of living in a city, social services inside. It means that in future, your municipality will be collaborating with so many different European data spaces in order to share data for being reused. On the other hand, there will be other players, trans-European projects, data altruism organizations, marketplaces, European infrastructures, and national or regional data spaces. In order only to share with you not a theoretical but a clear and real map of an infrastructure, let me share with you the cancer image, European cancer image infrastructure structure that we are working with. What you are looking in or seeing in your screen is a central hub that provides federated data processing directly with hospitals, for example, in observational studies, or with big healthcare providers from the area of genomics or cancer image or healthcare digital images. At the end of the day, what the user will see is a place where he or she must be registered, where he or she will look the catalog of datasets, a dashboard of applications, and will ask for permissions in order to develop a supported data processing by the infrastructure and by the tools that are available in this infrastructure. This is a really complex environment and make us the idea about promote thinking of municipalities and regions and states in order about how to build common infrastructures in order to be efficient and to promote data reuse. Some risks arise in the area of health. First one probably will be to promote or to have a data governance. This means an internal governance of any municipality and a compliance framework that is crucial. This is one of the most important lessons learned. We have to prepare our organizations, especially in terms of ethical and legal compliance, and to assume that we will be related with a new kind of citizen that it should be called researcher, entrepreneur, or any other kind of new agent that is interested in the municipality's data. On the other hand, the software middleware will be really important because, let me say, as we are talking about processing data in a secure processing environment in an SPI, we are providing tools for processing data. And this software is not only related with the inference or the achievements of any data processing, but it's related with how to grant or to assure things such as security, traceability, and anonymity. On the other hand, availability, as I underlined, is really crucial, really relevant in a federated processing. Now we are playing a match at local level with a few amount of data users. But if we will be playing at European level leagues, it means that we could be asked by 100 people, 100 users that will try to process data in our premises or in a common premises. And these players, for sure, in some cases will need an ethical approval, will need to demonstrate the lawfulness of the processing in accordance with GDPR, will have trust in us about the conditions of anonymization or robust pseudonymization of our data, and how do we fulfill the requirements, in our case, the European health data space, but at the end of the day, different requirements that will be stated for nowadays entering into force laws such as AI Act or future laws in this area. And in case of consent, we have to be capable to manage consent procedures and withdrawal of consent. When they have permission to access data, let me say that we need additional safeguards regarding requirements for applying to a data access to demonstrate compliance with applicable ethical requirements that in some cases will be national. They must understand the operational rules of the data space and accept the security obligations, the terms and conditions, and non-re-identification commitments. And they should implement applicable legal obligations in areas such as GDPR, biomedical research requirements on medical device regulations, artificial intelligence regulations, and so on. I'm finishing, and let me underline that there are so real risks on the anonymization procedures, because there is now under discussions what does anonymization mean. If you read the, let me say, old papers of the Article 29 group of authorities, now called European Data Protection Board, on anonymization, anonymization is conceived as irreversible anonymization. But if you read the last sentences, the last resolutions of the General Court of the European Union, the approach of anonymization is based on the capabilities of the data user. At the end of the day, we need to implement a strategy that means we are conscious about the conditions and structures of our data set. We implement a first layer of the identification, removing direct identifiers. We implement a second layer of anonymization, removing indirect identifiers. We have to verify, we have to test if they are correctly anonymized. If not, we have to make an additional round. And when we are pretty sure that data are anonymized, we could share them. But if we read the last recommendations of the Spanish Data Protection Authority that I think they are in the right way, they are so confident in the intermediation of software such as differential privacy, multi-party computation, or homomorphic encryption in order to implement an intermediate layer of software that protects data for any misuse. At the end of the day, it means more budget, more investment, and more processing requirements for your premises. My second concern regards the informed consent requirements. Let me share with you my main conclusion. If we maintain the approach of consent that so many authorities, including the European Data Protection Board, is applying, let me say that I'm not confident in data altering programs or data processing based on consent. Okay, if you have a consent in order to process anonymized data, no worries on that. But if we're talking about a consent of processing personal data, and you consider that from this consent, you will be capable to make a really populated data set, you are wrong. And I say it respectfully. The reason is that the European Data Protection Board clearly affirms that consent in this case must be given to you to any activity of processing, to any research activity, to any, let me say, entrepreneurship or innovating activity. And literature and experience said that the key click fatigue will arise. You could be sure that you have the consent of 50,000 people, but you have to ask them in every case and in every time about consent. In the 5 first times, I think they will say, okay, but at 6, they will say, no, please, don't hesitate. I'm not really comfortable giving you consent every 10 minutes. Then probably you have 50,000 people that said, okay, I agree with sharing consent, but at the end of the day, you only provide 500, 100, let me say 1,000 or 5,000 of data. Subjects data at the end of the day. My third concerns regard the capability of our staff. What the Spanish Data Protection Agency qualified as mediators are really relevant. We need to have internally expertise in security, ethics, and data protection in order to be prepared for sharing data. We are living times of change. We are evolving from open data to closed secure processing environments. We need to integrate in a regional, national, and European strategies on this area. And we have to be open minds in order to interact with other data spaces. In my view, it means that we need a high-quality regulatory compliance framework in order to provide not only legal certainty by data quality. We have to deploy processes aimed to ensuring adequate anonymization and pseudonymization data strategies. We have to build secure data spaces. We have to invest in training our teams, and we have to guarantee the organization staff roles in terms of data protection officer, chief information security officer, or chief data officer included, and data analysts that we will need in order to achieve the goal. This is all from my side.